Sustainability Karma, a podcast series on sustainable development, sustainability, and ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, on AIR FM Rainbow Delhi 102.6. In this podcast series, with senior journalist and editor Rajiv Tikoo, a who's who of thought leaders from the government, private sector, and civil society share their mantra for accelerating development in India and making the world a better place.
Welcome to this episode of Sustainability Karma. I'm your host, Rajiv Tikoo. We have a very special guest today, Nobel Laureate Kailash Satyarthi. He needs no introduction. Apart from working on various life-changing initiatives for children and the society at large, he is currently focused on the Satyarthi movement for global compassion. Welcome Kailash Satyarthi ji to this episode of Sustainability Karma.
Thank you, Rajiv ji.
You have recently started a movement called Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion. I would request you to share some thoughts about it with our audiences. What is this all about?
I strongly believe that the core spark or the soul of all social transformation movements as well as the religions lie in compassion. Compassion is not sympathy, neither empathy. Case of sympathy, one notices the problem or suffering of others and express some kind of solidarity in few words and then leave away. The second thing is empathy, an inner circle where the people feel the suffering of others as their own suffering. That makes them a better human being. But one cannot hold the suffering of planet and people for all the time. And that makes a kind of empathy fatigue, or they feel depressed or lost because they cannot live with that pain or suffering and problems of others. And the innermost circle is compassion, where you feel the suffering of others as your own suffering, with a strong drive to take action to end that suffering. So that makes you an innovator, a leader, an initiator, a courageous person to take action against the problems of others. So I have been saying that we have globalized markets and economy, data, knowledge, information, production, supply, everything. This is the time to globalize compassion. We have seen the good and bad of globalization of markets and economies and production. We know that people have benefited, but people are also suffering. The communities are suffering. We have seen that the planet has been suffering and we are not able to ensure that we can create a sustainable, or we can continue to live in a sustainable climate, sustainable ecology, sustainable planet. So in that situation, it was necessary to go deeper into the problems and try to dig out something which is there not only in the social movements initiative or religion initiatives, but also it's a treasure inside each one of us, because when our children are born, for example, the mother has a kind of different relation with the child. That relationship is of love, but also of compassion, because mother feels or father feels the suffering of child as her or his own suffering and try to solve that suffering. So there is no ego in it. There is no expectation of any return in it. So it is a selfish problem-solving way, and that's why we think that we have to build compassionate communities, compassionate politics, compassionate medical profession, compassionate education and academia, and compassionate corporate sector to save people and planet together. That is why we have launched this movement, global movement for compassion.
What about this upcoming conference? What will be the focus of this conference?
The focus of the summit, there's a huge summit which is focusing on compassion in human fraternity. And the idea behind is that the young people who have shown or demonstrated compassionate leadership in their communities, we have been working across, say, 700 plus villages, what we call the child-friendly villages. So in child-friendly villages, we have several activities of freeing children from any kind of exploitation, child labor, slavery. We ensure that no child marriages take place, or no child sexual abuse or trafficking, etc. So that is led by the young people of the village, young girls and boys, irrespective of their caste or community or any kind of economic background. So they emerge as leaders, and they go through democratic elections and make children's panchayats or youth panchayat in the villages. And the official village institution, the village panchayat, agreed to work with children's panchayat. And that is a child-friendly village, or what we call the compassionate community. Because in these villages, there is no confrontation, and even without going to the court or calling the police, children have been able to achieve these things, which are quite difficult to achieve through conventional manner. So we are bringing 500 young people from India, but also a few from Latin America, Europe, and Africa, some African countries. And they are going to share their experiences, as well as they are trying to see that how compassion in action can be built as a global movement, and young people, the youth, should lead that movement.
We don't seem to be doing well on SDGs. How can we accelerate achievement of children-related SDGs?
Rajiv ji, perhaps you know that I have been appointed as the UN Secretary General's advocate on SDGs. There are 17 advocates, and many of the presidents or prime ministers are among this small group of 17 people, and I'm also one of them. But let me confess that we are not going to accomplish any of these SDGs related to children, and there is no excuse for it. Now people can hide behind the corona pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. But the reality was that in the first 4 years of SDGs, between 2016 and 2020, we failed our children. And a larger number of children have pushed into child labor, especially in Africa. 10,000 children were pushed into slavery, trafficking, child labor every day in Africa during the first 4 years before pandemic. And these were the 4 years of SDGs. So people like me and my colleagues who have been advocating the accomplishment or speedy, enforcement of local policies as well as the international policies is still on. But what I can say to answer your question is that we have to invest in our children. Investment is the key. We, as a group of Nobel laureates and some world leaders, what we call the laureates and leaders for children, have come out with a report and suggested to world leaders. We have sent out this report with a covering letter to every single president and prime ministers or head of the state, requesting that only $53 billion additional dollars are needed to ensure education, healthcare, protection of all children in all low-income countries, and that will also include the newly born children and their mother's care, just in $53 billion. And that money is not such a huge thing, because this is just 10 days of global military expenditure. So we can achieve it. And through that, we can launch some social protection programs. We have been demanding, as a group of Nobel laureates, that there should be a global social protection mechanism where the children who are deprived, who are left out and marginalized, especially in the low-income countries, should get swift and direct benefit And that has been seen in many countries. Like in India, the midday meal schemes, the Manrega scheme for adult people, so many schemes run by state governments across the country for their social upliftment, but they are not just welfare schemes, they are protection schemes. They have long-lasting impact. So global social protection mechanisms should be established. That is very much possible to expedite or accelerate our work towards achieving SDG goals.
Climate change seems to be another pressing issue of our times. So what kind of a role would you see for children in climate action?
Children are among the biggest consumers of many things, driven by the economics and the materialism. And that encourages consumerism, and many of the time this is unnecessary consumerism. So children should learn not to waste water, for example, not to leave food. If they are rich enough or they are well enough, they make sure that they should consume those things which is necessary for all other children in the country. Children in many places and in the world cannot have safe drinking water or enough drinking water, and we throw our water, we misuse the water. So that is very simple thing. We can use our clothes for a day or 2 or 3 days if they are not dirty. So we can protect climate by this way, and we can save some water and detergent and help in making the planet a better place. So through simple things, children can make contribution. They can also, do plantation. Every school should encourage plantation. Every house should encourage plantation. So that kind of culture has to be developed in general, but the children and young people can take the lead in saving our planet.
What kind of a role would you see for companies in advancing child rights?
The companies should make sure that no child labor or forced labor is engaged in their supply chain, directly or indirectly in any manner. They can play an important role. And that's why we have been working very closely with a number of companies internationally, all major brands, I would say, I work with, and trying to inculcate the value of compassionate corporate leadership, where they should feel the suffering of other children and the people and planet together in their production and supply, and make sure that these children should also be saved as their own children are being saved.
What would be your prescription for helping children realize their full potential?
So, based on some of my humble experiences, I strongly believe that we have to learn to become the friends of children. Let us create a child-friendly environment at our home, in schools, in neighborhood, everywhere. And there should be child-friendly policies also, where the children are in the center. That is possible. And that's why I say that when you start with the children, one has to think of compassion. Because the children are compassion, or relationship with children is the compassionate relationship. That is not a kind of selfish relationship. Because the children's issues, their problems are our problems. So we have to learn how to treat our children, respect them, and make them friends. Many places one can see that children cannot share some of their serious problems or mental issues and agonies with their parents. That is not the environment. And whenever the girls and boys are being abused sexually or otherwise, even sometimes by the elderly relatives or friends of parents, then they don't share their problem with people in the family. So we have to learn that how to create an environment where the children can share those things. Some of the school problems, we see that so much pressure is being put on intelligent children or genius children, and every parent wanted to make a child, her son or daughter, or his son or daughter, IAS officer, IPS officer, engineers, doctors, this and that, and corporate leaders and so on. And sometimes they are pushed into that corner and they cannot come out of it. They feel so much burden and pain, and they are compelled to commit suicide, which we have seen in case of Kota, which is ill-famous nowadays, because young people commit suicide. And the pressure is the peer pressure, pressure is the societal pressure, and pressure is also the family pressure. So family should treat their children as friends so that such things do not occur.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. It was very interesting to hear how to realize children's rights and also how to focus on compassion going forward, which is the need of the hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You just heard an interesting and thought-provoking conversation with Nobel Laureate Kailash Satyarthi. He is also the UN Secretary General's Sustainability Development Goals Advocate.
We hope you liked this program. This program is also live streamed on All India Radio and aired on community radio stations. We look forward to your feedback on our WhatsApp number 9818120554. For participation in this program, write to us at sustainabilitykarma@gmail.com. You may also connect with us on social media. This podcast is also available on podcasting hosting sites. Looking forward to meet you again at the same time next week with a new episode and a new guest. Till then, goodbye from all of us. Sustainability Karma, a podcast series with senior journalist and editor Rajiv Tikoo on sustainable development, sustainability and ESG.